My 2019 definition of twin flames, which is the more mainstream definition, is when two people come together. It's a very unusual connection. They're connecting on the physical, emotional, and spiritual / metaphysical level. The connection's very intense. Usually the involvement is relatively short, maybe 3 to 6 months. It's, you know, probably the best intimacy of your life or the other person's life. And then ostensibly one person gets scared or it's too intense for them and they take off running. They become the runner. Usually it's the guy that's the runner, not always, but usually. So he takes off. And then the woman is left pining for the guy and she becomes the chaser, which is, you know, a bit dangerous because in some of these situations, you know, the obsession becomes quite intense. And so the woman is encouraged to, quote, work on herself. And in so doing, she basically clears a pathway for the guy to return because she neutralizes that energy according to the ideology. The guy may re-enter her life and he may be, quote, ready to do the work. In her doing the work, it somehow influences the guy metaphysically according to the ideology. And they may end up together, which would be a twin flame union, or they may not. If they don't end up together, it's all well and good because the woman did the work and she's a better person. But like, never mind those 10 years that she was back and forth with a guy and maybe could have met somebody else that was better for her, or even had a child with somebody else that actually loved her. Once again, not all these involvements are necessarily bad. You got to be aware of this weird, janky energy, and it's usually very front-loaded, and then the person disappears, and there could be a variety of reasons for that. What's really funny is a friend of mine not too long ago asked me, what is a twin flame? And I thought this was just such a funny question. Not because she didn't know what it was, but because I've just lived with this phenomena now for the past 6 years, and it's almost embedded in me. And so when she asked me, it was actually kind of hard for me to explain. But I actually think it's a good question to ask. What is a twin flame? Because it seems like everybody has different answers to that. So if you're new here, I went through a twin flame experience from 2019 to 2021. It dramatically impacted my life, and that's the reason why I decided to do this series. And I'll link my intro video in the show notes. That way you can get up to speed on what this series is about. For this video, I just want to get into what is a twin flame. And I'm going to give you my 2019 definition, and as of this recording, it's 2025, so that was 6 years ago. Because as we go through these situations, our definition can change, and dare I say, I think we need to have a discussion like, do twin flames exist the way they are portrayed on social media? All right, so 2019, this is what I would say about what is a twin flame. To me, 6 years ago, a twin flame involvement involved two people who had a connection that was very special. And for me, that connection involved the metaphysical. So there were a lot of metaphysical events going on. And it was like nothing I had ever experienced before. This connection was with a guy, which was very unusual for me. Not that I can't have a connection with the guy, but it's more unusual. Generally throughout my life, I've been more attracted to women than men, and I think there's probably some reasons for that I won't get into here. But this guy really seemed to get me. We had complementary backgrounds. So I worked in US healthcare for 20 years, and I'm not going to say what he did, but when I looked at those backgrounds, they almost fit kind of like this. They really went together very well, I felt. And it just seemed to me that this person actually understood me in ways that other people did not. The thing that intrigued me most about the twin flame phenomena is via social media, you had this special connection, you shared a mission together, and I could totally see myself and Mr. Catalyst. That's who I referred to in this series. I call this person Mr. Catalyst just to protect his identity. But I could see myself and Mr. Catalyst just almost totally, given our backgrounds, totally doing something good for the world. And I know that sounds completely idealistic, right? And I look back on it, I'm like, oh my gosh. But at the time, it seemed completely realistic that we could potentially come together in middle age, share this very special connection, and, actually do something good for the world. Now, I'm going to jump in a little bit with the twin flame ideology that says what happens is two people come together and usually they act as mirrors for one another. Okay, so if I was standing here and Mr. Catalyst was standing here, we really would be reflecting a lot of things back to each other. Some good and some not so good, right? So ostensibly, it really brings everything up, including your shadow. And I don't necessarily disagree with that. And I'm also going to say that a lot of people really can't handle that. They don't really want to see their shadow, and therefore they're going to project it outward and or they're going to run. So after the person runs, and in my case it was the man that ran, the other person, usually the woman, is left pining and has this unrequited love. And so according to the twin flame ideology, that is the time that you, quote, work on yourself, because all the darkness and your shadow side is going to come out. And you ask yourself, well, why am I pining after this person? Why can't I just be satisfied being alone? You take a look at your past history, your wounds. Your wounds are basically come up and they're open for you to see. And once again, I don't disagree with this, because this person, Mr. Catalyst, I knew him from high school. We dated briefly from high school. I didn't hear from him for many years, and then he came back into my life. And so at that time, I was actually in the process of doing a life review almost. And there were very specific reasons for that, as this wasn't just something that came out of the blue. I worked on a project that kind of forced me to do a life review, whether I wanted to or not. So I was in the process of doing this life review that involved a situation that happened when I was in high school, and he jumped back into my life. And when I was young, I really had like a lot of issues with men. So I figured, okay, well, maybe this is an opportunity for me to clear up some old things that I had gone through that I thought I had pretty much taken care of, but there's always different levels to healing. So I was pretty much on board with the twin flame ideology when Mr. Catalyst disappeared. I thought, okay, well, this is a good opportunity to, quote, work on myself, unquote. Now, supposedly, according to the twin flame ideology, you work on yourself and you actually clear all the stuff that you need to clear. And this is where it gets kind of murky. You're doing all this work on yourself. The person either comes back or doesn't come back. And a lot of times, in my experience, the person will come back for a little bit and then go back out of your life, come back in, go back out of your life. And a lot of people have compared these stages to narcissistic abuse. And they're not wrong about that, right? Because the initial phase is the love bombing phase, maybe the first 3 months, if that, where everything is copacetic, you're connecting on all these levels and everything is wonderful. And then the person basically devalues you, meaning starts to take a step back. Maybe it even becomes abusive, and then discards you. And then perhaps later on down the line, quote, hoovers you back in. Hoover, if you're not familiar with that term, is named after the vacuum cleaner, right? Where the person literally gets sucked back in. At least that's my interpretation. So when I say that these twin flame involvements, a lot of them are not good, I believe that because I've done a lot of research into this, and it just seems to me that a lot of people are left like pining and longing for this person, and it's really a waste of a lot of time. Like if someone is not treating you well, like ideally you should move on. That's definitely what I told myself when I was going through this, and I was very confused as to why I could not do that. And the problem with the twin flame ideology is it's really open-ended, and you can be wrapped up in it for years. I know people that are wrapped up in it for a long time. One channel that really helped me a lot because she was totally honest with everything is Underground Star. If I can find any of the interviews, I do have one interview with Underground Star and Tony Sayers. It's an excellent interview. I'll link it in the show notes. But what happens is people can stay trapped in these situations for years. And that's quite concerning because it can just kind of loop over and over and over again. And the person can kind of come in and out of your life at their convenience, which, you know, is great for them, but maybe not so good for you. The other person, the runner, is usually seeing other people, sleeping with other people, basically doing whatever they want. And then the chaser, the one who is completely in love with this, usually the guy, is left pining over this person, and that can go on for a number of years. And because of the twin flame ideology, they allow that person like in and out of their lives, unfortunately. And then it's kind of open-ended. Some people say like, okay, you've done the work on yourself and the other twin has not returned, and therefore you are a better version of yourself. Had that twin not entered your life, all this wouldn't have come up and you wouldn't have been able to resolve it. And so that's kind of a nice ending. Like if you're left by yourself, you're like, oh, I'm so glad I had this horrible experience where all this stuff came up and I was able to resolve it, because without my twin, like I would have never known any of this. And once again, there's shards of truth in here, right? So the other scenario is when the runner returns, and ostensibly because you've done all the work, now the runner is ready to be with you. I haven't had that experience, and I don't know many people who have, mostly because in my experience, you can't control anybody else, and two, you can't do the work for that person. That person has to want to change for themselves. There's a lot of things that are happening, and that's another reason why I'm doing this series. The person could have an entity attachment. Okay, I'm going to get into what that is, not in this video, but entity attachments are something that we should all be educated on for sure. The person could just be an avoidant. The person could be addicted. There's a lot of things that can really cause these metaphysical experiences. A lot of times these situations are left really open-ended, and a lot of women in particular will run to the tarot card readers and try to ascertain like, what is my future going to be? If you have to actually do that and go to a tarot card reader to figure out what the hell's going on, you might want to rethink the relationship. I mean, if that person's like not being straightforward with you, or, you know, a good relationship is somewhat predictable. It's not this janky energy. Like I said in a previous video, there's like huge channels with twin flame ideology. And then, you know, if you're caught in this abusive metaphysical relationship, like what do you do? Because all around you, people are encouraging this, and you're not really able to get very much help. That was my experience anyway. It was really hard to, I knew it was something that like I needed to get out of, but I did really love this person, so I was at a conflict. And once again, there were specific reasons for that I'll get into later on in the video series.